When you were giving your presentation and you were drawing upon the different cognitive elements and so forth, and I thought you did a good job of showing how they could all contribute in some way to someone's belief in a God, but I'm not sure I just wonder if you could maybe elaborate a little bit. If you go back, how did it happen that at some point in time, long ago, someone said, I know we need to introduce a concept of a God here? I mean, how did that all come together and result in a concept of a God, and then have it be portrayed in ways in which all these different cognitive elements and so forth made it easier for us to accept it?
My understanding is that, I mean, that's a hotly debated question. And the anthropologists who are looking at this try to look in the ethnographic record, particularly at pre-literate societies, which are thought to be a window into deep history, into the environments that we evolved in. And there's a lot of debate about that, about what was the original, what the original creation of gods entailed, why it happened, what functions it served. My understanding is that a lot of people think it is because it provided explanations for phenomena that individuals had no control over, that how else do you explain how else do you explain the world other than it was created? We tend to look for human agency. How do you explain the world? It's got to be created. Who's the usual creator? A person. So it gave answers to existential questions. Who created the world? Who created me? Who created, why am I here? Why am I here? And purpose and intention and also phenomena of nature. And who brought the rain? Who brought the droughts? It was originally basically, as I say, a cosmology and a biology, an explanation of the universe and of life that our hominid ancestors were faced with.
Right, which would seem to me to be somewhat of an intellectual approach in that, and I don't have any problem with that or anything, and maybe I just need to read some more things. The transition from taking that intellectual desire for understanding and need to explain things, and then transforming it, if you will, into an agent of power and terror and war, and that it's not usually what you think of the intellectuals of a society doing with their information.
Well, it wasn't necessarily the intellectuals. That it was just people. One of the ideas, and I can't remember whose it is, maybe it's Sapolsky's, but it was a stress reduction mechanism. That if you had an explanation for these things that were terrifying and out of your control, and you had an explanation which gave you some control, it basically reduced stress. And you weren't as helpless. You weren't as helpless and as powerless and as terrified as you otherwise would be. It gave people a sense of control and stress reduction. But if you're interested, I think there's a new book by Lyle Steadman and Craig Palmer. I think they address that. But it's out. There's stuff out there on your question.
I agree with your idea, or your implication, that before there was language, there were no gods. But you came up with the figure 60,000 years ago, and I was a bit surprised by that. There was some research done on a gene, I think it's called FOXP2 in London.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, the geneticists who were involved with that concluded that they think that this gene, which is not the only gene, but a gene associated with speech, became prevalent throughout the world only about 150,000 years ago. And then I read later that some other people have come up with the approximate date of about 300,000 years BC. But anyway, it's quite clear that language is pretty recent in evolutionary time, and therefore religion must be also a pretty recent phenomenon. So I wondered where you came up with it.
It comes from two things. There's an article in July 2008, Scientific American, on some of this. But the nicest access to this is Nicholas Wade, the New York Times science correspondent, wrote a book, Before the Dawn, which I would recommend to all of you. I mean, it is a very good summary of the latest thinking on human evolution. And there is some question about whether Neanderthals had Fox P2 and if they had some proto-language. The other piece of evidence that it's based on, and I don't think I've got this. I don't think I've got the slide on this. Is if you that's a vertebrae, okay, and if you look at us, the area in one of our upper thoracic vertebrae, where the area of our brainstem that controls the breathing for language, it's a certain diameter. And they found Homo erectus vertebrae at the same site. And Homo erectus was as big as we are, probably bigger and stronger, actually. And the area of the spinal cord that's crucial to complex language, their area of their spinal cord is not large enough. So that's one of the pieces of evidence that Homo erectus didn't have complex language. Or Homo heidelbergensis, I think. And Homo heidelbergensis is the ancestor of Neanderthals and us. So that's one of the pieces. But Nicholas Wade, in his book, has a summary of the research on FOXP2, and I can't remember the ARP. There are two other genes that are thought to be crucial for symbolic language. And he's got it.
What's his name again?
It's Nicholas Wade, W-A-D-E. Nicholas Wade, he's one of the science correspondents of the New York Times, and it's in paperback now. And I'd recommend it to anybody. It's a very accessible, quick read, and it's just really well done. And basically, he summarizes human evolution. The one that blows me away is they think there was severe climate changes, and we got down to about 2,000 individuals. They can calculate this on mutation rates in genes, and we got down to about 2,000 individuals, somewhere around 70,000 years ago. And then 50,000 years ago, approximately 150 people made it across the Gates of Grief, which is the area at the tip of the Red Sea, the southern part of the Red Sea, that leads into the Arabian Peninsula. And I think about 150 people made it across there, and that, hominids, Homo sapiens, modern Homo sapiens, you and I, made it across, and that's the founder population for the population that spread to Asia, and then they spread west, northwest, circled back, and went into Europe about 40,000 years ago. And I just find that remarkable. 150 people made it across, and it's all laid out in Wade's book. But that all of us alive today, the 6 billion people on the planet, are the descendants of about 2,000 people 70,000 years ago. Thank you very much.